I am convinced that one of the most important parts of being a homemaker is feeding our family the best food we are able to afford. This has lasting benefits, like a lot of our work does. I know that some of us are limited on time, money, and even good quality foods, but we should strive to do the best we can with what we're able to get. Food is one of God's greatest blessings to mankind. It's delicious, it nourishes our bodies, it brings family and friends and people together across the world. It's a beautiful part of culture and an experience all in itself. This video is meant to encourage you and to inspire you to see the value that food carries and the long-lasting benefits it plays in our family and in our home.
Hey guys, I've been thinking a while about making a video focusing on the importance of food in our homes and for our families. What I feed my family is so important to me, and through the years, through many slow processes, we've been able to arrive to where we are now. It's been such a blessing to meet people along the way that are like-minded in their nutrition goals and find connections to where we help each other out. And it's been a blessing to be able to find good sources for meat and dairy and organic local vegetables as well. I wanted to share all the things we've done and how we've been able to slowly add to the list, how it all started and began, and where we are today. I also wanted to share some of the homemade food I'm making throughout this week for my family for various meals. I didn't get any footage of breakfast today, but it was simply homemade sourdough toast with some fried eggs and apple slices. And I had some Earl Grey tea, and my sons had rooibos tea, and my husband had his coffee. And that was our simple breakfast. Today for lunch, I'm making two ahi tuna pieces that were in the freezer. We're going to split it among me and the two boys. Some roasted potato wedges, some broccolini, and some salad with homemade ranch dressing. So I would say when my children were born, my firstborn, also let me just get this out of the way. My mom's puppy jumped on me and scratched my face. So if you see this, that's what it is. It happened yesterday morning. Very annoying. When my firstborn was, less than 6 months old, we started to meet people that were milling their own grain. And I had been making our bread for several months, but I wanted to branch out into milling grain. So I started to buy grain, have my friend mill it for me, and see what I thought. She gave me her recipe. It worked fabulously. I got the hang of it. I did that for about 6 months and realized, okay, I'm in it for the long run. I need a mill of my own. So that Christmas, I got my first grain mill. It was called the Kitchen Mill. It was the one you guys have probably watched me use my entire YouTube channel. Only last year did I upgrade to my beautiful bamboo countertop mill, but I used that kitchen mill for 12 or 13 years. And I loved it. It did its job. We milled our grain for all breads. I would do tortillas. I learned all the recipes for all the different doughs for pizza, pita bread, biscuits, muffins, brownies, everything. Quick breads, and then our regular bread for toast and sandwiches. So that worked. that seemed to stick for our family. Oftentimes you'll try something and you realize, I like this, but it's just not practical, it's not realistic, or you'll drop it for a season, then pick it back up again. It's just the way it goes with making things from scratch. You don't have to do everything all at once. You can gradually build, you can gradually add, you can test things, you can see what's actually gonna happen and what's not. Butter is one of the things that I did for a long season, and it just fizzled out. Once Aldi opened in my area and I could find grass-fed butter for $3, and I did the math. I was spending the same making my own butter, and it's not hard, but it's very messy, it's time consuming, and to get it just right takes a little extra effort. So it was just not worth it for me. But I do make our yogurt and our mozzarella cheese, and sometimes I make feta and yogurt cheese balls or yogurt cheese spread with the raw dairy we get local. That was our next step. We did bread for years, then we started milling our grain, then we found a local raw dairy provider. Then we found, pretty much at the same time, a local meat farm that was organic, and they had lamb, beef, chicken, pork, and we've been buying our meat from them for the last 13 years. Around the time the boys were 2 and 1, we planted our first garden. I did raised beds. I did predominantly herbs, greens, and tomatoes, and it was very successful. It was a very encouraging first time garden. I chose the produce I chose to plant because those were the things that were the most expensive at the farmer's market. It's very tempting to plant everything, but if I could find squash and zucchini for $3 and I can get enough to last us the whole week, I don't need to plant it. Not only are those plants very big, take up a lot of space, and if you have limited gardening space, you want to save it for the stuff that's expensive at the farmer's market, like the organic greens or tomatoes. I would go through tomatoes like in a day. If I got a crate of tomatoes with 5 or 6 at the farmer's market, we would eat some that day. Usually we'd come home with it on Saturday, make bruschetta, and then the next day have a little more in our salad, and by Monday it'd be gone. So growing tomatoes was a really important decision for us. Not only are they delicious to the point where I don't even buy them at the store anymore, but they're really easy, and we eat a lot of them, and we saved a lot of money growing our own. So checking to see what you buy, what you actually eat in your family, what is expensive at the farmer's market to where you can grow it yourself. I think that's one smart move we did when we first started to grow our own food. We got chickens shortly after that, and that was our first flock in our old home. We had them for about 3 years, and then we gave them to friends with more land because they destroyed our backyard. We literally had a mud pit for 2 years. So it wasn't until we moved to this property 3.5 years ago that we went ahead and got our next flock of chickens. And free farm fresh eggs are such a blessing. Of course, you can buy farm fresh eggs, which we did for years, but of course they're expensive. They add up fast. So having your own chickens, it's definitely like the easiest animal to have on a homestead. All you need is a safe coop, some good chicken feed, waterers, and some cozy nesting boxes that will attract them to lay their eggs there, and you got yourself free farm fresh eggs. It's such a blessing. They taste better, look better. It's such a joy to know that you're feeding your family such rich, nutritionally dense foods. So then over the course of the last few years, I've been making kombucha for years. I've been making bone broth for years. I think the most recent thing I started to do about 2 years ago was to make our own medicine. And I've shared some of that with you guys. I've ordered a lot of organic herbs. I've also grown a lot of herbs, and I've also foraged a lot of herbs. And I've dried them and made salves with them. I've made teas with them, of course. I've made tinctures with them, medicinal tinctures. And that has been a new hobby for me. It's so easy. I wish I had done it years ago. It just seemed intimidating because whenever you're adding something new like that, it seems bigger than what it actually is. Super easy, super fun. And so that's been the newest addition in the last 2 years or so. And I started to make our own candles about 3 years ago. Got rid of all my scented candles. I noticed that they would start to give me not really allergies, well, maybe allergies, because I would get all blocked up just smelling the scents. And I knew, like, this is not, first of all, this is probably not good for me, but this is unpleasant. So I got rid of all of them, and I started to buy beeswax, melt it down. I tried to make them fragrance with essential oils, but you have to put so much to actually get a scent that I just leave them scentless now. And I do buy the long tapered candles for decor more than for practical use, but all my short little candles in the bathroom, in the bedrooms, on the little side tables and stuff, those are all handmade by the boys and I. And I've recently attempted water kefir, and it's not working very well. So I'm not sure if it's the weather and if it'll get easier in the hot months. So, and then I order in bulk from Azurestandard a lot of our organic dry goods, some frozen wild caught salmon, a few frozen vegetables, a few vegetables and fruits in bulk. We grow as much as we can. Every year we add to our garden. This year we're gonna add raspberries and strawberries and figs. I have wild elderberry, so I forage that and make elderflower tincture with it. I make elderberry syrup with it and tincture. And I plan to propagate some of those trees to expand the amount of elderberry we have. We also have wild blackberries everywhere and wild muscadines everywhere. So we gather as much of that as we can when they bloom. And anything else that comes our way that we discover. So it's been a journey. It's been such an adventure. I don't really have any current goals right now. I feel like I make as much as I can from scratch, and I have a lot of good fermented, oh, that's something else we do, is I ferment vegetables. I have a lot of good probiotic sources that we intake on a regular basis, our fermented veggies, our kombucha, our hopefully soon water kefir, our sourdough breads. We grow microgreens and sprouts. We have a lot of good nutrition on a daily basis. And then I drink tea throughout the day, every day, well into the night. And my children love tea as well. So they're getting a good portion of that. So I feel like all of that feels good. As far as animals go, I'm still on the fence about adding any animals for meat. I have a very hard time emotionally because I take such loving care of my animals. I get very attached to them, and the thought of raising them for meat is just not something that I have been exposed to it. My grandfather and my great grandfather used to have meat birds when I was a child, but that was before I was 6. So I have vague memories of it, but still, even then it was hard for me. So that's not changed. And so we've considered meat birds, we've considered pigs, still on the fence about it. I'm going to let the men decide that if they really want to do it, and they will man it and take care of everything from beginning to end, then I will stand behind them and let them go for it. But I really don't want to grow in love with the little piglets only to know that in a few months we'll be butchering them and then eating them. It's just strange for me. Even though it's totally normal, I'm not against it in any way. I just have a hard time with it. So we haven't ventured into meat, growing our own meat animals, but I feel like with all the things I make homemade, with our garden, with our chickens providing free eggs, with making products, dairy products out of our raw milk, we get a lot of nutrition, we save a lot of money, and we're getting the most for our investment. And then any scraps I save to make like onion peels and garlic peels and stuff. I make bone broth with that. I give to the chickens. I throw in my compost. So nothing really gets wasted. Even the eggshells I roast and grind up and give them to the chickens. So I feel like we use as much as possible to recycle back into our own diet or our animals' diets. And it didn't happen overnight. So I'm making this video to inspire you, encourage you, to remind you to just be patient, to work towards a new step every couple of months, every couple of years, whatever you have to do for your family and your financial situation. But there's so many little things you could do even for minimal cost. Azurestandard is one of them. I started with Azurestandard, again, 13, 14 years ago, and I slowly built my pantry. I couldn't buy everything I wanted the first month. So I literally got like olive oil and 1 bag of beans my first month. Then the next month, another variety of beans and wheat berries or something. Then the next month, another variety of beans and maple syrup. Whatever I was trying to gradually build so that then I could have all the things I wanted. And when one ran out, I just needed to order 1 or 2. So that was how I did it in the beginning when I couldn't just order everything at once. And kombucha is so affordable and it's such a great source of probiotics. So it's just something to consider. These little things, once you start them, make them, they just become the norm in your kitchen, and it doesn't feel overwhelming because nothing happens. It's not like you have to do everything every day. So be encouraged, pick 1 or 2 things to try, see if they're realistic, see how long they actually last in your life. If it falls, if you give up, give it a break, try again later if you want. Some things you're gonna have to put a lot of effort into to make it stick, and then it will. Some things you're gonna try, and you're gonna realize no matter how much I try, this is not gonna stick, and that's okay. And there's some things that you're gonna love right off the bat, and it's gonna feel like second nature to you. And there's some things you're not gonna even be interested in trying ever. And all of that is okay. The point is, find what you do like, what does appeal to you, what you do wanna try, check it out, be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, don't try to do everything at once, and gradually build to achieve the full scope of what you desire later down the road. I usually do a starch, a meat, a vegetable, and sometimes I add bread or a salad or both, depending on what meal it is, how many people are eating, how much meat there is, just to make sure there's enough. With 2 teenage boys, it is important to have a lot of bread to fill up whatever they need after they eat the normal meal. And in our family growing up, we ate rice pretty much at every meal. Hector's Puerto Rican, I'm Cuban. Rice and beans was a staple at every lunch and every dinner. So we eat a lot of rice in our home. I have this leftover yellow curry mustard sauce that I'm gonna put with my potatoes and mix it up. We have this with rice and chicken and vegetables. It is so delicious.
I made some bone broth in my Instapot today using some beef bones. There's usually so much meat on the beef bones I buy from my local farmer that I get all the bones strained and then keep the meat for that evening's dinner. So that's what I did today. This is beef from the beef bones that I made bone broth with. I'm adding some onions to it. I'm also going to add the chickpeas that I made in my Instapot today. I will keep the rest in the fridge and probably use them throughout the week for lunch and other meals. This is going to be kind of like a picadillo, but with this beef instead of ground beef. I'll just do salt, pepper, garlic powder. I put turmeric in anything and everything that I can. And I'll add some tomato sauce and just let it simmer for a little while with some fresh cilantro and jalapeno stuffed olives. And I've got some leftover sushi rice from yesterday's poke bowls that I will serve with this, and that's dinner. I don't usually make desserts on the weeknights, but ever since I saw this crustless pumpkin pie or kind of like a pumpkin souffle on Little House on the Mountain, I have wanted to make something like it. So I looked up some recipes and landed on this one. The only modifications I made were maple syrup instead of honey and heavy whipping cream instead of milk. And it was so delicious. It was exactly what I hoped for, really smooth, custardy, and just that warm spice feeling with the cinnamon and cloves. I will share the link to the recipe I used in the description box below. I also made some whipped cream to accompany this beautiful crustless pumpkin souffle or pie, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you guys know this, but using powdered sugar instead of granulated sugar to make whipped cream has been the greatest discovery of the year, or I guess last year, because we're just in February this year. So I did half a cup of heavy whipping cream, a quarter cup of powdered sugar in the KitchenAid, and out comes the most perfect whipped cream. Absolutely delicious. We do this for cobblers and anything else you want whipped cream for. This was a hit. I definitely prefer savory breakfast. I love my eggs and veggies and toast, but when I go for sweet, it's usually German pancakes. I love German pancakes. They are so easy. They dirty minimal dishes. It's just the blender and a pan or two, and I usually slice up some apples and melt the butter with the apples in the oven, blend up the mix in the blender, and then top everything with cinnamon. I used to mix the cinnamon into the mixture, but it is distinctively better when you sprinkle it on top. I don't know why. It forms like a buttery crust with the cinnamon, and it just really makes it that much more delicious. So, German pancakes, family favorite. I'm definitely a clean as I go kind of cook. This is definitely one of those meals that makes it very easy to clean as you go. Besides these pans, the blender is the only other thing we got dirty. So once these go in the oven, I can wash the blender and do anything else I need to get done in the kitchen while they bake. Afterwards, for my family, we usually have half of one of these pans left, which the boys will snack on throughout the day. So I'll only need to wash one pan. I love meals like this because they really give me peace of mind and keep things tidy around me as I cook. German pancakes are also pretty rich in protein. They call for a lot of eggs, and so it's a perfect opportunity for me to roast my eggshells while the German pancakes are baking so that I can feed them to the chickens later for that extra calcium in their diet. These pineapples are ready, so I'm gonna get them cut up and put into the fridge so they're nice and cool for our lunch. 2 pounds of ground beef into the sink to defrost for tonight's dinner. Not sure what I'm making yet, but I've got some ideas in my mind. I've got to focus on lunch for now. I've had the most incredible blessing that this local organic farm has been supplying a friend of mine with beautiful produce. I've known about this farm for years. They've been at the farmer's market as long as I've been shopping there, and their stuff is by far the best quality, but it's also the priciest. So I've only bought a few things throughout the years because it adds up fast. But they have been supplying my friend's store with produce, and whatever is too old to sell, I've had the opportunity to pick through and take what I need for my home. So this has been such a blessing. Every time I open up one of these bags or containers, I'm just like praising God because I know the quality of this produce. It has been a blessing. I don't know how long I will be able to receive this, but for now, it has been such a blessing. So we're having salad for lunch, some sourdough cheese toast. I'm going to use some of the chickpeas that I made yesterday for lunch. I've been making curried chickpeas for my children as a go-to lunch probably as long as they've been able to eat solids. It is such a yummy family favorite. It's so easy. I always make extra beans so I can keep some in the fridge and just throw them in a pan for lunch. I've made the curried chickpeas with veggies mixed in, or alongside roasted potatoes, or alongside baked potatoes, or baked sweet potatoes, sweet potato fries, so many different combinations through the years. Today I'm making this yummy sourdough cheese toast with salad and the curried chickpeas and some pineapple. Today feels like a spring day outside. It's warm and sunny, and so we're having our first cold lemonade style drink of the season. This is a go-to easy family favorite. You just squeeze some lemon directly into your glass, add a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar, about a tablespoon of maple syrup, and then top it off with seltzer water and stir. It's refreshing and delicious and very healthy. I never got into meal planning. I feel like it was always more expensive than just having a master list of groceries to always have in the home and in my dry stock in my pantry, in my fridge, and my freezer. And just to be able to have a variety of ingredients to pull from and just create meals out of whatever I have. I know for some people that's overwhelming, or you don't have as much experience with creating meals, and so it's easier to have recipes, but I do think it's something to work towards because it is more affordable to cook that way. It's also faster to cook that way. I feel like following a recipe is much more time consuming because you're having to read it all and follow all the steps and you're not familiar with it. Whereas if you see a recipe and you think, I'm going to make something like that, and you just pull together what you have and maybe follow the seasonings, you can be done much quicker than following a very precise recipe.
What's for lunch, Mom?
Curried chickpeas, that salad, and some cheese toast, some pineapple for dessert, and that yummy apple cider vinegar lemonade you're drinking. Dessert is the pineapple, but you're eating it now.
decided what I'm making for dinner. I'm gonna make some Salisbury steaks with mushroom gravy, mashed potatoes, and like I said before, I try to use as few pots as possible, so I'm going to cook whatever vegetable I decide on directly into the Salisbury steak and mushroom gravy. It'll probably be spinach or kale or Swiss chard because those wilt really nicely into the gravy and it just adds a pretty swirly green. I'm gonna season this beef with salt, pepper, garlic powder, turmeric, and some Worcestershire sauce. Some mushrooms, some bone broth, some heavy cream, and I'll make a little roux on the side and mix it into the pan to thicken the gravy. You could also slowly mix the flour in as you pour it in gradually, but with such a crowded pan, I found that would be much harder to do, so I did the separate roux instead. For Thanksgiving mashed potatoes. On a regular day throughout the year, I leave the peels on, and the paddle for the KitchenAid actually collects a lot of the peels, which is nice. So I don't scrape it back into the mash. I just take it out and throw all the peels away. So of course there's still peels in the mashed potatoes, but they're tender and soft and they don't interfere at all. They're delicious. I keep them simple with just salt, pepper, butter, and heavy cream. This meal was Joel's birthday meal last year. He loves it. He was very happy tonight. You can also mix egg noodles in and make it kind of like a Swedish meatballs kind of dish, and of course this would be delicious with roasted potatoes as well. I fed my sourdough starter earlier today and it's ready to make into a dough. So I'm gonna start some dough for some English muffins for tomorrow morning's breakfast. I'm also gonna pull out a pound of Italian sausage so that I can make them into sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwiches. It's the next morning and I'm starting on the English muffins. I really like making them in my cast iron with avocado oil, and this dough probably could use a few more hours of rising, so I'm only gonna make 4, one for each of us, and then I'm gonna let the dough continue to rise and make the rest probably tomorrow for breakfast. I was very pleasantly surprised at how juicy and bright red these Florida grapefruit I found at Aldi were. This was a delicious and very filling breakfast, and it should hold us over for a few hours. We have homeschool co-op today, about an hour and 15 minutes away from home, and I'm supposed to bring a snack, so I am gonna make this coffee cake that my friend told me she tried from the Becker's Bread cookbook, and I need to mill grain for this recipe. I've never made this one before. I usually make coffee cake with like a crumb topping and the streusel middle, but this one seems to be a much faster version, which is perfect for this morning because I've got to hit the road and get to our co-op. I'm saving half a pound of the Italian sausage I used for this morning's breakfast sandwiches, and I'm pulling out an additional pound to defrost for dinner. Not sure what I'm making yet, but it will involve 1.5 pounds of Italian sausage. We'll be gone all day and we'll probably be pulling into the driveway right at dinner time. So I'm leaving my kitchen organized so when I get home, it's not there waiting for me to stress me out. I can just start cooking as soon as I return. Okay, we are home and I'm pulling out my 1/2 pound of Italian sausage from this morning, plus the defrosted pound I left in the sink. I've decided on Korean rice bowls. This is one of my go-to dinners when I've been gone all day. The easiest dinners to come home and make in a hurry are rice, vegetable, and meat meals. So this is a go-to. Curry chicken is a go-to. Butter chicken is a go-to. Picadillo is a go-to. I just love rice-based meals that you just make some meat and veggies on the side, and it looks so elaborate, but really it's so simple. I do use more than 2 pans for this meal because the roasted veggies are a must. One of the best things about this meal is that any vegetable will do. Tonight I'm doing carrots, red peppers, broccolini, and bok choy. I will roast these at 400. I'm just gonna toss them with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. I love mushrooms on this meal as well, and cabbage is also delicious. The rice, I always start it first. I feel like the order of how you cook also helps you finish the meal sooner. The rice is already steaming on the stove while I prep this and put this into the oven, and then I'll save the meat for last because it takes the shortest amount of time to cook. This needs about 30 minutes in the oven. You could toss all the vegetables together, but I like to keep them all divided because my children like some of these and not some of these, so they pick the ones they like for their plates. This is also a meal that I love to make when we have company because it's a great buffet style meal and you can just set it up on the counter and let people build their plates. I'm seasoning the meat with some onions, garlic, fresh ginger. If I had green onions, I would totally add that as well. I will put soy sauce and sriracha in the meat and probably some red chili flakes. And this will be ready in no time. By the time this meat is ready, the rice and the veggies will also be ready, and it'll be time to serve. We love topping our rice bowls with sesame seeds and sesame oil. Today we have some fresh cilantro as well. Sometimes we do green onions, and I'm sure there's other yummy sauces you could use. I hope that you guys are inspired to make some more homemade from scratch meals. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box below for any recipes. Please like, share, and subscribe. God bless you guys, and see you next time.